Ladies and gentlemen, it is that time. Spring has sprung, and today we have a front yard garden tour video where I'm going to update you guys on what was once a plain Jane lawn. And here we are. I think this is year 3, maybe year 4 later. We have an amazing urban oasis with a ton of native plants. Before we get started, always remember, Earth is my planet.
Earth is my planet.
This was once just a lawn in a really crappy garden bed. I built a giant pond and I planted a ton of native plants. I love bringing in the wildlife, whether that be insects, birds, mammals, reptiles, whatever you can imagine. Some amphibians in the pond as well, obviously. And that's why I plant native, because it just attracts really cool wildlife and doesn't have my garden looking stagnant and like a Home Depot clone. So without further ado, let's dive into some of the plants. This is just going to be a front yard tour. I have a corner lot, so I don't know if I'm going to include everything on the side yard. I might do a front yard, side yard, and backyard tour because there's so many plants to get into. But let's get started, man. Smash that like button for me. It always does help me out. And please subscribe if you aren't already. I love the comments too. So drop one down below if you feel inclined to do so. So where to begin? Probably with the most poppin' showstopper of the spring, which is this beautiful evening primrose. These buttercups, evening primroses that have taken off and spread throughout the bed. Now they were more at their prime and now are starting to go to seed, which is amazing. This is a native plant, obviously, to Texas, and it spreads readily, but I don't even mind in the front garden bed. And then kind of after it puts on a show in the spring, it does go down in size a little bit. Why are airplanes always flying when I start recording? Now, as y'all remember, when I started doing this bed, it was originally a pond. I mean, the pond is still there, but it was small plants, and we've had the lantana take off. This is a lantana camara. It did have more flowers, I want to say like a month ago, but this dude has gotten huge and spread. You can whack it back as far as possible. Beneath it, my ground cover layer is coming in clutch. You have this mimosa. It is sensitive whenever you touch it. It is cool that the leaves just kind of shrivel up. You know, it's the opposite of what happens when I'm touched. Whatever. You have my golden sword yucca that is popping in the front. It still gets enough sun right here. We got some volunteer lantana in the front as well. And then a ton, and I literally mean a ton, of my Passiflora incarnata, which is my passion flower vine that is popping. Now, one of my favorite plants in the garden in general is this puppy right here. My dear God, you have the indigo spire salvia. This is a bee magnet. They literally love this, and the blue does contrast really well with the yellow of the flowers. We do have some wandering dudes, some Tradescantia pallida that is popping throughout the garden as well. As you guys can see, got a little bit of purple hits just coming through. And then you have one of my favorites, the Greg's Blue Mistflower. Now this is a butterfly magnet. And as y'all can see, it does kind of hit a different tone of green in the garden as well, being more of a slime lime. This is a non-native, but we do have this like climbing rose, which was popping a few months ago, and it still is putting on a show. We got a bunch of inland sea oats, and those have spread, and I honestly want them to take off. They just look super lush. You can whack them back, it ain't no thing, and they do come through with a ton of seed heads. Now, along this side of the garden, you can still see some of the rock work, but you also have my autumn sage. Beautiful pink. And what's cool, man, is I've recorded all this. So legit, you can see when these were just tiny little plants and how massive they have become over the years. So moving up towards the pond, there's some more evening primrose that is just chilling on the pond's edge. And then getting up there, I did turn off the pump because it kept getting clogged by the pine needles, but you have an absolute abundance of pickerel weed. This one is about to flower. Some have already done their thing. And then you have horsetail reeds off beyond, right next to my alien. Shout out my alien. All right, so also in the front of the bed, man, you have one of the very rare non-natives in the front garden bed. I just wanted a pop of slime lime, and that is this sunshine ligustrum. I might get rid of it eventually because we do have my sable minor palmetto native palm to Houston that is popping as a nice backdrop next to my pine tree, which is the center of this garden bed. Now these Opuntias, which are some spineless cactus, if y'all remember, these were just 2 pads I put in the ground, and look how big they've gotten. And they're not even getting smacked by full sun right here. Like, these dudes are borderline being shaded out. This looks like a heart, even though I think something may have taken a bite out of that. I don't want to blame myself or my son, but we get hungry on occasion and like to snack in the garden. Now, this is a nice moment right here. You got my canna lilies, just fully erect. They have these bright red-orange flowers glistening in the sun, and also a very sweet deep magenta purple. That's not even magenta, is that? It's like a maroon burgundy hue on the leaves. I also have a bunch of sunflowers that have started popping off, and these are all volunteers. I threw in some birdseed, as y'all saw in like one of the last videos I did, and the birds are sloppy fools. And so I've been getting just a ton of sunflowers that have popped up. And so it's like the bird feeder created its own feeder. Like, look, something took a whole bite out of the top of that. You also got these cannas I found in the trash. These are smaller, more low growing. You have my Tacoma stands that is coming up. It usually gets about 8 feet tall by the end of the season. And then you have more of that beautiful Greg's Blue Mistflower that is creeping and crawling along this area right here. And of course, we do have my Yopon Holly. That's the dwarf male version that will fill up this space as time goes on. It's more of a slow grower, but eventually it will be a small shower. It's not gonna do much, okay? It's not gonna put on a big show. Who am I kidding? Now, welcome to the back end of the bed. We have these rock roses. As y'all can see, I put in 2 tiny plugs and this whole bed is taken over. The flowers are nice. They attract some pollinators as well, which is always an added benefit. And the plumber just pulled up, so I'll catch you guys in a second. But back to the lecture at hand, guys. You have this cut leaf daisy, which is putting on quite a show. It has that nice pop of yellow to contrast with the pink, which I think is always necessary. And then we have a bunch of my desert plants. I do believe this is a Yucca Gloriosa. This pupper, I want to say, was half the size it currently is now. So it definitely has came a very long way. And I forgot I even planted this rattlesnake master. I mean, this dude was tiny, microscopic when I put it in the ground. And now it is getting pretty substantial in regards to its size. It's super mean, thorny, all of that. We also have my like burgundy crepe myrtle. I'm trying to single trunk it, even though it keeps sending out shoots and suckers, but ideally this will be a single trunked specimen. And I think that red just definitely contrasts with all the green we have going on as well. My knockout rose doing great behind the Aliens derriere. We also have a white mistflower, which isn't really even the same as the Greg's Blue, considering this forms a large shrub. My agave, this was a tiny little small fry I got for like $5, and now it's huge and obviously vicious with the thorns. I also transplanted some of these Indian blankets, Mexican blankets, Gallardia, whatever you want to call them. They look very, very good. Fire wheels, I think, is another common name. But this dude was extremely small. I just dug it up from my side yard, planted it here, and I hope it reseeds. And this whole area is covered by these Gallardias because they look really, really cool. Now I have another agave. This one is variegated. I got this one in the valley near Mexico, and I had to cover it up during the freezes, and I am so glad I did because, my God, this dude shows up and shows out in the front of the yard. Now, I also got my beaked yucca right here. I cannot wait until this dude gets huge. It already is leaning, trying to get away from some of the other salvias that I have. There also are some coreopsii that are about to pop off. We have some of these chicories, all right, Carolina chicories, I think is what they're called. And also in the front circular bed, we have another Opuntia that is absolutely magnificent. Overall, this area is looking glorious in the circular section of the bed around the pond. And my Duranta also has been flourishing. It actually is about to flower, and these are highly hallucinogenic plants that will kill you if you consume them. Now, moving right along, we have this ovular bed, which I constructed last year. I painted the brick white, which in hindsight, I kind of wish I didn't because it stands out a bit, but eventually it will fade and get more patinaed. With that being said, this bed is still a work in progress for the most part. We have more of those Gallardias that are cracking off. I planted these this year, and this just goes to show how much of a resilient native plant these are, and they do reseed readily and pretty much bloom all year, which is an added benefit overall. Now I also have my Orient pear tree, which has not done much. I tried to burn down the crepe myrtle that previously was in this area. It keeps shooting up with a bunch of new seedlings from the root system, which is annoying, but when I did attempt to burn it, I did stress out this Orient pear on its bark, which in hindsight was really freaking stupid, so I probably should not have done that whatsoever. But coming along, we have another Spanish dagger yucca that's cracking off right now. We have more Gallardias, and then I planted this pad last year, and look how many new growths are emerging. So I'm gonna let this cactus go crazy in the front of this bed. I also have pup agave that I threw in right here. Hold on, let me move some of these. And then we have another one of these variegated agaves as well, which is coming through. And there is a volunteer peanut plant right here, which is doing quite well. So I imagine underneath this bed are a ton of peanuts. So I think a squirrel just buried that, and now we have a peanut. It does pop off with really nice looking flowers, so just kind of tend to leave it. It takes over the bed as the year goes on. So my mother-in-law threw a ton of bird seed in this area, and so we also have some volunteer sunflowers that I did leave. I had to weed out pretty much everything else. It was just reseeding a bit too readily, but kind of like an infinite bird feeder glitch is going on in this bed. So cruising right on along, got my Kiefer pear right here. This one is doing better because I did not try and burn down the crepe myrtle next to it. And look, this is what I'm talking about. Look at all these new young shoots pissing me off, dude. That's why I hate crepe myrtles, man. Only have the maroon burgundy ones in the garden. That's it. But yes, this Kiefer pear is disease resistant, as is the Orient pear, more blight resistant. So hopefully they do well. My other pear trees have been getting some blight, so I'm just hoping these flower though. So this is the second year they're in the ground, and I hope next year or the year after they do begin to flower if we get enough chill hours. Now we are moving on to the front show-stopping bed, and this is one that I did design more to be, I guess, traditional in a sense, where there's layers, multiples of the same plant. It's just not a plug of a random thing here and there. But overall, I think it is looking good. And right now it's only in its infancy, considering the season has somewhat just started. But y'all kind of see what I'm going for. All right, but hopefully you guys are kind of catching my drift. The front layer is this Tradescantia Paillita once again. So we have a purple. Then we have that like Carex that's growing right here, variegated. I thought they would get a little bit bigger and put on a bit more of a show, but y'all can see right here, this is kind of the biggest specimen we have. And then right next door is legit the runt of the litter. And as y'all can see, there is a nice little spread and splay happening finally with the Butamus Wandering Dudes. So I can't wait for them to continue to fill out the bed with some of that purple nurple action. Then the next layer is my shell ginger, which does get beat back to the ground every single year and looks like absolute hot garbage when it freezes, but it reemerges. It is root hardy out here in Houston, so by this summer these should be fully popping off. And then behind those, we got the utilization of an amazing native plant, the Turk's Cap hibiscus. The flowers are edible. I say it all the time. This is one of my favorite shade plants that you can grow, just because the red really does crack off, and these are starting to self-seed. So I have a lot of pups that I do want to dig up eventually and move to other areas of the bed, and they will get about 4 to 5 feet tall. So super nice by the end of the summer once again. And now all of these plants are underneath 2 of my southern live oaks, which are awesome. They do have a lot of offshoots though of some small little pup oaks, which are really annoying. I don't know, these are so prevalent in shooting off branches from the main trunk. I don't know if like something's up with this, if it's just got a crazy amount of growth hormone in it, but this guy goes absolutely nuts. I've had both of these trees trimmed this year, and it still is just going ham, shooting out new growth. But underneath it, we have an obedient plant, and we just have one right now. I have a bunch in the backyard, and I need to plant more, so it does spread and fill out this area a bit more readily. We also have a sable minor palmetto. This one is doing much worse in this area than some of the others, but you know, I'm just trying to let it do its thing, man. I think eventually it will start to pop off out here as well though. And then behind all of it, I think we got the kaleidoscope cannas. Is that what you guys called it? Or like the, I don't know, like Egyptian makeup cannas, Cleopatra cannas, whatever. But these form a really nice back layer behind everything. I threw in a couple of American beauty berries, Calicarpa americana, and this one is taking off beautifully on this side, so it will get really huge and eventually fill in this blank space. And then the backdrop behind all this is this Home Depot shit that they planted previously when this house was built. It does form a decent backdrop hedge, which just keeps things looking, I guess, somewhat tidy for the neighbors that give a shit about that. I really don't. You guys will see on the backyard tour how I really get down, but you know, we got people walking by, so I'll try and keep it somewhat aesthetic. Now let's get to some really cool understory trees that I also have in this front bed, or I guess not trees, but plants. You have another one of these Yucca gloriosas. This one is doing surprisingly well because the western sun does set on this bed, so it gets blasted with a lot of afternoon sun and heat. But this is the tree I was mentioning, man. You got this red buckeye. It does look like it has a seed. It had amazing flowers on it. This is a more slow growing tree, but it's put on substantial growth considering it was just a twig in the ground a couple of years ago. So I'm just gonna be with this guy for the long haul. It almost got crushed when my house was being renovated. Praise God, it did not. Then behind it, we have my sago palm. And this was a transplant that I found in the trash. So luckily I got a very large specimen. It did take off in this area of the bed. It looks really lush, nice, and I like it. And then, well, what do we have here? Planted in mass, you have more of those mystic spire salvias. Guys, this is one of my favorite flowers, period. They get nice and tall. The bees love these flowers. They go absolutely bananas for them. And I think I'm gonna grab even more and just try and fill out this entire area with these blue spiked flowers because they look so dang good. In front of them, you have some Carex Everillos, I think is what they're called. You got this edible Okinawan spinach, which is growing pretty well in the front of the bed right over here. I want this to take off a bit more and become a ground cover. It just hasn't done so yet. And then we have my rough leaf dogwood. This is a native. It was in flower legit like a week and a half ago. You guys can still see the flower popping off right there, but other than that, it is just seeding readily. And this is a true native that is a nice plant to have on the edge of a woodland area, which this pretty much is. We got my southern magnolia that's popping as well. So the canopy layer of this area is on point. And then we got a Japanese yew behind that. Now the red flower popping off underneath is this tropical sage, which does well in the shade out here in Houston, Texas. I think the front area is coming along pretty nicely. And now we have an area I don't show off all too much, but I started redoing it like early on in my gardening journey. So this is the area I am referring to on the walk up to my front door. You have these Yopon holly shrubs, which look pretty nice. They look full. Okay, they're all the male varieties, never once have seeded, but then you have a dead one right in the middle. So I am contemplating just ripping all of these out and turning this into a wildflower area walking up to the house. I think that'll look a lot better. And I already have a shrub layer that is developing nicely right behind it. And I've been waiting 3+ years for these shrubs to finally get tall enough to really get the sun they need to grow to their full potential. So there they are, baby. The Texas sage. I think that's what they call them. It's not even a sage. There's an example of the flower right there, but the color scheme is super nice. A really like light minty color. And then underneath the pine tree, I planted this Vitex. And this bad boy, I legit just threw in a pot on the ground, and I just let it sit there until the roots went through the hole of the pot, sunk into the ground. I cut the plastic around it, and now I have a Vitex tree planted in an area where I definitely could not have dug a hole. This bad boy is in flower right now, just beginning to pop off. It does smell lovely, and this is one of the trees that I just trimmed. I am very, very pleased and happy with the way it is looking in this area thus far. We also have this mountain laurel right here. We got these boxwoods. Probably should yank these out and do something else in this bed. But yes, guys, that is the front yard tour, spring 2025. Hopefully y'all did enjoy. If I were to put flowers in the top category for the Houston, Texas area, zone 9, and obviously a lot of these flowers can be planted in other growing zones, I go with the Mystic Spire Salvia, #1 for the pollinators, Greg's Blue Mistflower #2, #3 just for the repeat blooms and color. I go with the blanket flower, the Gallardia, and those will probably be the top 3 I would choose in the landscape in terms of flowers to attract pollinators and that just rebloom throughout the entirety of the year. But if you guys enjoyed, smash the like button, drop a comment, and until next time, always remember, Earth is my planet.
Earth is my planet.
Peace.
Killing these songs, leaving a bloody life I roost to. And I'm in it to win it, so I'm somebody that you should get